All right, this is chapter 13, When It Can't Get Worse. The light is fading from the dreary sky when Mr. Tru finally rests his paddle and announces, "We here!" The canoe nudged up against the flight of stairs that rises out of the oily, dark water. The ground floor of the building remains submerged, but the second floor apartment is, as he promised, above the flood. The apartment, he explains, belongs to a friend. Della won't mind, he says, leaving the canoe latched to the railing. She's in Natchez with her daughter, but the door is locked. Course it is, he says softly and turns to Melvina. Can you climb through that little window, darling? She squints at the small window. No problem. And in less than a minute, she opens the front door with a mischievous grin. There's a big TV and an AC, she announces as we step inside. A big TV and a new air conditioner, but no electricity. Not a surprise, really, since most of the power lines have been blown down or carried away by the flood. Mr. Tru says we'll just have to make do. Della, keep a nice kitchen, he says. We ain't gonna starve. Is there a phone I can use? I ask. Sometimes a landline phone will work even if the power's out. Everything's down, he says, shaking his head. Ain't got my cell phone, but even if I did, I doubt it work. Day after a bad storm, the phones always go out. And this weren't no regular hurricane. Tomorrow, we find us some dry ground, wherever it at, and get you back with your family. Bandy is sniffing every corner of the small apartment, including under the couch and the bed. He keeps making these little happy yips, like he's discovered something interesting. Did the owner have a cat? I ask. Queenie, Mr. Tru says, surprised. But Della never leave that cat behind, no way. Doesn't matter that the cat is gone. Bandy can smell it everywhere. He's wagging his tail and looking for a friend because Bandy is one of those weird dogs who likes cats and wants to play. But he comes running fast enough when I locate a can of cat food and pop the lid. Turns out a hungry dog will eat cat food, no problem. And humans will eat canned spaghetti, no problem there, either. Me and Mr. Tru share a can of spaghetti and some stale bread, while Melvina has a bowl of cereal and the last of the milk in the refrigerator. You children drink up what's left, he suggests. Another hour or two, everything in that fridge start go bad. Melvina pours the rest of the milk into a glass and offers it to me. I shake my head. She eagerly drains the glass and wipes her mouth with a paper napkin. My mom always says don't leave nothing in the glass. So where's your mama? I ask, thinking of my own mother. Melvina stares down at the table and frowns. In a hospital, she says. Oh, I say. What's wrong with her? Did I say something was wrong with my mama? Did I? Don't you be saying there is. Sorry. Don't you be sorry. Don't need to be no sorry for no stupid boy. She stares at me so hard it makes my face hot. Mr. Tru takes off his hat and places it carefully on the kitchen chair beside him. Without the jaunty hat, he looks older. His dreads are a little thin and have some gray in them, although it's hard to see in this fading light. And when he removes his black framed glasses to wipe the sweat from his brow, his eyes are puffy and white, and the whites are kind of yellow. Melvina's mother left her in my care, he explains. It's a temporary kind of situation, and I'm happy to oblige. Where's your mom, huh? Melvina says, her chin jutting out. How come she ain't here? So I explain about visiting my great-grandmother and how our flight got canceled and how I jumped out of the church van to look for Bandy and all. Mr. Tru nods along with my story. Beatrice Jackson? That sings in the choir. Miss Trissy? That was her place we found you at. Oh my! That woman's a legend in that neighborhood. Drop so much as a cigarette butt on her street and you in trouble. She still go all the time? I nod. So, he says super casual, what's your daddy name? Gerald. Uh-huh. You say he passed? Before I was born. You knew him? He hesitates and says, knew of him, you might say. not personal. I like that he doesn't make a fuss about my father being dead, even if he does know something he doesn't care to share. Fine by me. I mean, what does it matter? My father and his got himself killed brother are ancient history, okay? Water under the bridge, or over it, or whatever. Except it turns out that Mr. Tru is not quite finished on the subject. Come to me that both of you have that in common, that your daddies passed before you was born, he says, folding his arms and looking from me to Melvina. She doesn't react, not giving anything away. Then I shrug and she shrugs back, like we've both heard all we can stand about absent fathers, and there's no need for further conversation. She holds that blank you can't touch me expression for a while and then goes, "Why you talk so funny, huh?" "Don't be rude, Dawn," Mr. Tru says in a warning tone. "It's okay," I say. "In New Hampshire, we think you talk funny." Melvina grins and shakes her head like she approves that I came right back at her. "Everybody talks funny, I guess," she concedes. "So what do they do in New Hampshire?" "What do they do everywhere else, I guess? The usual stuff." "Like what?" I shrug. "Nothing special. The grown-ups go to work mostly and the kids go to school and like that." "And when you're not in school?" "Well, we play video games and hang out at the mall or whatever." Sounds so lame, but I really miss it. "Uh-huh. They do processions in New Hampshire?" Melvina asks. Mr. Tru sees me looking puzzled. He explains that a funeral procession, which in New Orleans are kind of a solemn celebration, the city is famous for them. Some tourists call them jazz funerals. We make a parade through the neighborhood so folks can pay respects to the one that passed. But with music, everything in the city is about music. "And dancing in the second line," Melvina adds. "Oh yeah, that too." See, the first line is for the family and the friends of the deceased, and the line that follows after the band is everybody else we call the second line. Melvina says eagerly, "Second line dresses up and do special step walk dances you only do for funerals. And all that fine ladies dab their eyes with their lacy handkerchiefs and twirl their umbrellas. Everybody in their best everything to the beat of a drum. Slow kind of beat, real mournful, all the way to the cemetery. Whole neighborhoods come out to watch. You know somebody special passed if Tru blowing his trumpet. On the way back from the cemetery, he plays saints and everybody dance. Might you be don't even know the deceased, but you dancing 'cause Tru down man and he playing his sweet music." Sounds pretty weird to me, dancing at a funeral. I've only ever been to one funeral when my mom's cousin died, and believe me, nobody was dancing. Nobody thought of dancing. They had these nasty little sandwiches they passed around on plates, and some people told stupid but kind of funny stories. And the only music was this dreary organ at the church and a couple of creaky hymns. Nobody dancing, not even close. "Be lots of funerals," Melvina points out. "Them that drowned." "Never mind none of that now." Mr. Tru turns to me and changes the subject. "So how'd you get up in that little attic?" After I described what happened, the water chasing me and Bandy inside, and how we climbed up on the table and the chairs, Mr. Tru tells how the flood caught him by surprise too, how he and Melvina just barely made it out of his home and into the canoe, and that he had stored behind the house. "House went under, but the little fishing canoe, it popped up just in time," he says. "Floodwaters come so fast, it was all we could do to grab Melvina and get out. Left everything behind, including my phone, my wallet, and all my brass." He shudders a little at the recollection. "What happened? I fell asleep with my hat on. See, I was staying up all night listening to the hurricane wind, and when it finally stopped howling, I must have relaxed and nodded off. There in my best chair. Thought we'd come through it safe and sound, do you understand? Next thing, my feet are getting wet. Melvina chimes in. I was sleeping. Thought I was having a dream. Like me and my mom was at the pool and she was chasing me to swim." I make sure not to ask nothing more about her mom, and Mr. Tru gives me a little nod, like he approves of me keeping my mouth shut on that particular subject. "Gonna be dark soon," he announces and stands up at the table. "Melvina, darling, maybe you can find Della keep her candles. Me and Zane, we'll take care of the canoe." While she hunts eagerly through the cupboards, me and Bandy help him drag the canoe up the steps to the apartment, where it suddenly looks much bigger than it did outside. Better safe than sorry, he says, satisfied. No matter what else happens, we got our transportation. What makes me wonder, what does he mean? Which makes me wonder, what does he mean? We've been blown down by a hurricane, flooded over our heads, lost our homes and everything in them. We've been baked in the heat and nearly drowned in filthy water, paddled through a swarm of flying cockroaches, even seen houses crushed by giant ships, and steering away from terrible sights like floating bodies. I'm thinking it can't get any worse until night comes and the guns start firing. And that is the